Thank you very much. I am now turning the floor to the distinguished representative of Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Vice President, we have today once again listened to blatantly absurd comments by the Indian representative on the situation in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They have insulted the intelligence of this House with the usual twisting of the historical facts, obfuscation of their repressive role, and the outright denial of the well-documented violations of human rights in that troubled region. I would urge the Indian representative for at least once to drop their position of obfuscation and denial. In this regard, I would request him to answer honestly and objectively a few simple questions. Can the Indian delegate deny that the situation in Kashmir is an internationally recognized dispute on which there exists a number of UN resolutions? Can the Indian delegate deny that the UN has expressly called for holding of an impartial plebiscite to ascertain the wishes of Kashmiri people? Can the Indian delegation deny that there are over 700,000 Indian military and paramilitary personnel deployed in Indian-occupied Kashmir, which amounts to a shocking ratio of around 1 military person to 17 civilians? Can the Indian delegation deny that since 1989, around 98,000 civilians have been killed in IOK and that they are all well-documented reports about mass graves? Can the Indian delegate deny that in the most recent upsurge of violence since 8th July, over 90 persons have lost their lives, 8,000 have been injured? Can the Indian delegate deny that to suppress the Kashmiris, the Indian armed forces have resorted to an indiscriminate use of pellet guns aimed directly at civilian protesters, resulting in 120 persons being blinded and many suffering from the grievous injuries that will blight their lives forever? Can the Indian delegate deny that the entire valley of IOK is under curfew since most of the past 2 months? And finally, I have framed these questions in a simple manner so as to facilitate clear and honest answers from the Indian delegate. I hope we can finally cut through the traditional Indian pattern of obfuscation, denial and blame shaming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that 2 countries have asked for a second right of reply, and they are India and the DPRK. So I will now give the floor to the distinguished representative of India. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We strongly reject Pakistan's continued misuse of the Council to make tendentious references about internal matters pertaining to the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. This stems from Pakistan's territorial ambitions over Kashmir that has found concrete expression in repeated armed aggressions. Pakistan continues to be in illegal occupation of a large part of territory in Jammu and Kashmir. The fundamental reason for disturbances in Kashmir is the cross-border terrorism sponsored by Pakistan, which has provided active support since 1989 to separatist groups and terrorist elements, including those operating from the territory under Pakistan's control. Pakistan's dismal track record is well known, and many countries have repeatedly called upon Pakistan to end cross-border infiltration, dismantle the terrorism infrastructure, and stop acting as an epicenter of terrorism. Pakistan has alleged human rights violations in India. Our credentials as a peaceful, democratic, pluralistic society that's deeply committed to the welfare of its people are well established. On the contrary, Pakistan is characterized by authoritarianism, absence of democratic norms, and widespread human rights violations across the country, including Balochistan. The institutions of governance in Pakistan have corroded to such an extent that it has become a hub for the global export of terror. It will be in the fitness of things if instead of ritually raking up alleged human rights violations elsewhere, Pakistan were to focus its energies on improving human rights situation within Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It must also take action against the perpetrators of terrorist attacks on its neighbors who are roaming freely in Pakistan with impunity, so that terrorism emanating from Pakistan, the gravest risk for peace and stability of the region, could be addressed effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that the distinguished representatives of Pakistan and Japan have also requested a second right of reply, so I am now giving the floor to the distinguished representative of Pakistan. You have the floor.
Vice President, regrettably, we heard with great patience and just the slightest and perhaps unrealistic hope that Indian delegation will accept but the historic reality about the international nature of the Kashmir dispute as well as their continuing terrible record of human rights violations. There is again no indication that they will own up to their incontrovertible fact that the terrible situation flows from the nature of Indian occupation and their unceasing oppression of the Kashmiri people. Accusations of trouble being fomented from outside is at complete variance from the facts on ground. The simple fact of the current situation is that it flows from the extrajudicial killing of a 22-year youth leader Burhan Wani, a killing that led to an upsurge of popular protests as evidenced by over 200,000 people who gathered for the funeral of Mr. Wani despite a curfew. It is further evidenced by the fact that over 2 long months in the Kashmir Valley, it is in a complete state of lockdown and curfew. And it is reinforced by the fact that Kashmiri people and their leaders, through their actions and statements, repeatedly made it clear that they will accept nothing less than their right to self-determination. These facts are clear to more sensible and enlightened section of the Indian people themselves. Even in their own parliament, some bold and honest individuals have accepted that the Indian oppressive policies are at the root of the misery of the Kashmiris and their continued insistence on seeking their right to self-determination. The only party which is in denial of these facts is the Indian state. This condemns the Kashmiri people to the continued misery. Their only hope is that the international community will come to their aid amongst an Indian state which refuses to see any reason. I thank you.